Ladies and gentlemen, now it's the valedictory keynote address from a man who's a visionary who needs genuinely no introduction. He's been there, he has all the experience that one needs, and I'm going to be calling him over here on stage. He's going to be discussing the topic of decoding kids' entertainment in India. I'll repeat the topic once again. Decoding kids' entertainment in India. Ladies and gentlemen, the loudest amount of applause and cheers for Dr. ANNURAG Batra, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief, BW Businessworld and Founder Exchange for Media. Give it up for him loudly, please.
Good evening. It's my honor and privilege to be here on the 5th edition of the IWMBuzz Kids Summit. Thank you, Mr. Laik, for inviting me. Siddharth and Franklin started IWM 6 years back and look at the growth of IWMBuzz. And I'm sure every IP and every initiative that IWMBuzz does will grow. I'm not an expert on kids television. I'm actually not an expert on anything. I am a learner. I'm a very curious person. I'm a doer. All of you understand Hindi? हिंदुस्तान में दो तरह के लोग हैं, ज्ञानचंद और करमचंद. मैं करमचंद हूँ, मैं ज्ञानचंद नहीं हूँ. Right? Of course you need knowledge. Wherever the goddess Saraswati is there, goddess Lakshmi comes, impact happens. So during the day, a lot has been said about where is the kids' viewership going, what are kids watching throughout the day, throughout the night, what is the share of the kids' media platforms, what is the viewership of digital. And I may not be a teenager, I'm not a teenager, but I am a screenager. And I'm going to talk to you about teenagers and screenagers. And let me say that, you know, my kids are now a little grown up. They're not classic 2 to 14 is what we call kids, right? They're much older than that. So, you know, but I have watched Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma a long time back with my children. I have watched all kinds of kids' content, maybe 10, maybe 13, 14 years back when my son is about to be 16, my daughter is about to be 20. And, you know, I have watched it with them and my wife not allowing some of the content to be watched or being watched in moderation. I think a lot has changed in the last 20 years since my first child was born. The biggest change, as everyone must be talking throughout the day, is the mobile phone. And children at a very young age these days have access. I'm not saying necessarily ownership. It could be a shared phone. They have access to a phone because they go to school. There is coordination to be done. And, you know, 14, 15-year-olds definitely have access to the phone. They have access to content. So today, the horizon of a child is much more than the horizon of a child 20 years back. The availability of content across multiple platforms is much more. And again, if you look at the viewership of what kids consume, the biggest thing that kids, in a very simplified way, are consuming is gaming. It is the single biggest programming. You know, gaming is the segment. If you look at the gaming segment and we talk of 400 million, some reports talk of 600 million, a lot of it is young children. A lot of it is all ages, especially between 25 to 40. So, and I'm also corroborating this with what I see in my household or saw when my children were younger. So the first thing I want to say that kids' media has to be responsible. I think we'll talk about the kind of content, but kids' media is about responsibility or should be about responsibility. And I'm sure all of you who create content, who sell audiences, take this responsibility very, very seriously. And the only thing I want to talk to you about is how you can do programming on digital platforms, on the large screen, or on cinema. There are only 3 platforms: the phone, the television set. Exchange for Media has a connected TV conference day after tomorrow. The television sets are becoming bigger and bigger. The issue of electricity in a lot of rural areas is solved. Anyway, there is a mobile phone. The statistics on viewership is available on Google, so I won't go into all. I only want to talk to you about responsibility. And why do I talk about responsibility? Because children are the future of our country. Whatever habits, whatever ideas, whatever exposure we give to them, it will create the kind of people. I don't know what did the grandson of the former prime minister watch that he did what he did. You know what he did, right? I don't have to go into that. He's a member of parliament from the south who did what he did. Clearly, his exposure as a child wasn't good. They say the best school is home. Children see what their parents do, what their uncles do, aunts do, brothers do, sisters do, neighbors do, and that's what shapes them. And clearly, the kind of content, aggression on kids' television. Anyway, they have access to internet, so it is more about their values than it is more about censoring them. You cannot censor them. You can't be because they'll find ways to do it. But do you weave themes that bring in responsibility, that bring in values that children should grow up? I know it may become, it doesn't sound, what works is a lot of loud content. I've watched, I'm nothing against this program, but Pokemon. Pokemon? What was Pokemon? Pokemon, right? Because my wife would not let Prasan watch that or let him watch that like once a week. It was rationed. Or first you do your homework, then we'll allow you to watch that. But how many parents can be unpopular with children? And today you cannot 24/7. So doing content that shows violence, doing content that shows division, content which is religiously inflammatory, content that only tells one side of the story, content that subtly sows the seeds of aggression. Because seeds of aggression in a person are not born at 15, 10. They're born between the age of 2 and 6. So if we are producing the kind of content we are producing on kids' television, it has a role to play. Clearly, it can play a positive role. Second is building positive role models through kids' content. How do you build positive role models through kids' content? Because if you do that, you'll contribute to the creation of adults whose value system and whose role models are such that benefit the family, benefit them, benefit the community, and benefit the country. We talk of IPs. Now, you take any, again, any kids' television channel is not in the business of kids' television. You're in the business of content and audiences and monetizing that. They are multi-platform audiences. I don't think today you assume they are multi-platform audiences. People are consuming content on all screens. So these screenagers who go on to become teenagers see responsible content on kids' television. Whatever little research I was doing on before coming here, I said there are 3 things that are missing on kids' content programming platforms. And I'm saying programming platform because, television is one part. Then there are YouTube platforms which have become so big. And I want to say that media in the future, and especially in the kids space, is about the 3, rather I'd say 4 C's. The kids marketplace, the kids content marketplace is about 4 C's, which also applies to my business, but it applies more to the kids space. First is content. Second is the context in which that content is shown. Third is the community. Fourth is cognition, learning. There are huge platforms in kids which are creating content which kids use for learning. And I'm not going to use the word edutech, because edutech is a little different. And eventually all this leads to marketplaces, commerce. So when you are thinking of kids' content, you have to think of content, community, commerce, cognition in a certain context, right? Why do they come to consume that content? But the 3 things that all content platforms should really be conscious and weaving it in its content. One is we have to teach children about kindness. How to help the other person before you help yourself. Because the world is becoming me too. Myself, we are becoming very self-centered, which is okay. But how also to be able to help others? So how do we, through storytelling, how do we show kindness? We talk of Ramayana, it's about sacrifice, right? It is about keeping a word that you made to somebody, your father, your mother, your brother, right? Uh, so really, first thing is teaching kindness through content. And as I said, children at the age of 2, 4, 6, 8, it will become a part of their fabric. So whatever you do, the stories that perpetuate the message of kindness, that be good to yourself, but once you're good to yourself, also look after other people. Maybe sometimes look after other people before you look for yourselves. That's missing. The second theme is there in some programming is about caring for the earth, sustainability. Children, of course, are going to inherit the earth from us, going to inherit the air, water, land from us. And clearly, in some of the programming that you see on Indian kids content platforms, there is this theme of caring for the earth. Can it be bigger? Can we get them to? We live in an age of consumerism. There are two kinds of companies that are really, really asking us to consume more. Everyone is buying more. There are multiple cars, there are multiple TVs, houses are bigger, water is being consumed, electricity is being consumed. So how do you make sure you become frugal? And it's not easy. How do you make sure you're more conscious about the choices you make as an individual as you grow up? And the third issue is about sleep. I think it applies to adults, and I keep talking, but sometimes my children, they're 16, about to be 16, about to be 20, they sleep very, very late. And I'm not a late night person, Siddharth knows, I can't figure that out. If one night I'm awake in the, I can't work next day. And I was like that at 15 also, so it's not about today. There are two kinds of companies. One is creating companies, OTTs like Netflix, Amazon, who are saying you can binge watch. You can start watching at 11 p.m. in the night and you can watch till 4 a.m. So they are an enemy of sleep. Then you have food delivery apps, Zomato, Swiggy. You can order food at 2 a.m., eat it, lots of food. That won't let you sleep. So clearly, availability is there. Of course, it is about discipline. But gaming and the kind of platforms in the kids space, they have to drive home the point of good quality sleep. Because sleep determines how you will eat, whether you'll be calm in the school or not, whether you bully your friends or not. Because if you've slept well, there is a good chance that you'll be calmer, you'll be healthier, you'll be more content. So sleep, we do not talk about kindness, we do not talk enough about, there are themes about earth in a lot of programming on various platforms which is directed at kids. And third is talking about the value of sleep, sleeping early. Of course, all of us know that the best time to sleep is between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. according to the circadian rhythm. I mostly sleep around 11 and I sleep till 7, 8 hours, always, sometimes 9, sometimes 10 hours. And I'm never guilty about sleep. The one thing I'm not guilty. I'm guilty if I don't work on a Sunday, I'm guilty. I feel guilty. But I don't feel guilty about sleeping. That's the only thing I don't feel. So it's good for my body, it's good for my brain. Can we tell children how to build boundaries in programming? What is responsible behavior? What is inappropriate behavior? So the right role models are very important. So I don't want to talk down to the kids programming content leaders, but I would say that in whatever you do, you have a big responsibility. Kids media is equal to responsible media. You have to be able to not just do popular themes, but like when you give food to children, of course you'd give some things that they like. You could broadly classify that as junk food, ideally no junk food, but you also have to give them things that nourish them, like you give them in actual food. So whatever you do as CEOs, as founders of kids businesses, you have to be able to do content that is more responsible, that creates positive role models and also showcases positive role models, that increases the consciousness towards earth and sustainability in young adults and in kids. And last but not the least, which espouses the qualities of kindness, espouses the qualities of good quality sleep. I mean, sleep is the most, whatever habits a young child will form, they will continue. Whatever good habits I have, is because I observed them in my parents. I'm very sincere. That comes from my parents. That comes from my father and mother. Both are like that. You know, my son called me early in the morning and said, while I was on I want to watch IPL match. And he doesn't call me very often. And, you know, I did arrange 2 tickets for him, but he said they're not good. Then I made a couple of calls, and he's going and watching IPL. It's not about IPL or my making. It's about the fact that, kids have a certain expectation from their parents. They look up to their parents as a role model. I do joke with my children, but my wife tells me you shouldn't be joking because sometimes, whatever you plant in a child's mind, in his or her subconscious, stays for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. He or she may not act on it today, but somewhere it's in the subconscious. So when you talk to children through your programming, talk positive themes, talk constructive themes, talk themes which are beyond entertainment. They are more, I went to a convent school in Old Gurgaon, and they had a class on moral science. I went to nuns used to run the school. It's best part of my education, though I went to MDI, I went to an engineering school, but I would say my school was the best part of my education. And I'll tell you, it was a very innocent school. Of course, it was a different time and age. There were no mobile phones. And I went recently, about 1.5 months back. I also went to the first ever alumni get-together of that my school, and I was more excited than I am ever excited about anything in my life. I met my classmates. My happiest memories of my childhood are there. I was a little bit naughty also. But point I'm trying to say, in that school, they taught us moral science. All the things, they taught us about not lying. Sometimes we do white lies, but I am not good at lying. Right? I am very direct. If somebody asks me and if I'm comfortable, or I will not give an answer. The only thing I can say, I'm reaching in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, that kind of, or not giving my source for a story. But so whatever I learned in my 6th class, must be 10 years old, or 5th class, has stayed with me. It's about, the biggest quality needed to do well in life and be happy, forget well in commercial terms, in material, is empathy. Can you teach empathy through your programming? If you don't have empathy for other people, you don't have empathy for yourself, you'll not do well. You'll be an imbalanced child. You'll have a complex. The complexes lead to certain actions. So all of you in this room who are part of this IWMBuzz Kids Media Summit, who are creating content, who are selling content, the media planners, buyers, advertisers, you have a responsibility of doing programming that creates the right role models, and creates the right habits, creates the right thinking in the subconscious. We live in a different environment, and hence we need it even more than what we needed it when I was growing up. Not that I have grown up. I'm a hairless, toothless infant. But on a serious note, I want to end by saying that the kind of programming that is happening on kids' platforms, especially kids' entertainment, is being challenged by gaming. Gaming is becoming a mainstream alternative to watching content. So in whatever content you create, you may want to bring the element of interactivity, because the beauty about gaming is it's interactive. My son is playing with his friends remotely, and that is an activity he spends a lot of time. I'm using my son as a universe. He's 15 and a half. At least in the last 6 years, I've observed him much more than I did between the ages of 2 and 10. I was too busy. I also want to say that children spend a lot of money on kids. It doesn't matter what level of income you are in. I can tell you whether it's about their clothes, it's about their entertainment, it's about their gadgets, it's about preparing them for their future self, which could be academic, non-academic. Some people pursue tennis, some are pursuing tabla. So, the kids' monetization universe is huge. And, kids and parents both are influencers. Today, when I buy a car, my son is the biggest influencer. He's 16 now, but when he was 10, he was an influencer then, too. So kids have a very big influence, at least in buying decisions for the home. They have a veto power. They have a negative vote. So, ultimately it's the parents that buy some of the products. But when it comes to kid categories, which is all the summer, we are in the midst of a summer. Colas are not healthy, but healthy alternatives to summer drinks, to clothing, to accessories, to books, cars, to white goods. Of course, FMCG products, I can take chocolates, I can keep giving examples. So kids have a big important role, not in decisions that relate to them, but they also have a power which goes beyond them. Today, luckily, we have kids influencers who lots of children are emulating, following, and at least getting impacted. I won't say influence is a huge word. I believe influence comes from an immediate environment and stays much more than what you see from a kid influencer. I would end by saying that like in every platform, every ecosystem, innovation is driving premium, innovation is driving differentiation, and innovation in some cases is the only reason why a certain platform is being watched. So do innovation in the way you do your programming, do innovation in the way which you do your branded content, do innovation in the way you build IPs, which are both online and offline. And last but not the least, involve kids in the creation of content. I remember 20 years back watching Sub TV, and Mr. Anupam Kher used to do this show called Kaho Na Uncle Se, Anupam Uncle Se. And it used to be a huge show. Of course, things have changed since then. But the fact is, I remember this show because my kids were small. Right? I grew up reading Champak, Nandan, Target, Chanda Mama. Today, everything has become video and visual. Reading for some children is in, but definitely video is being consumed. Comics are a very important form of expression from the kids and also consumption. How can you already, the cartoon or the animated content does well, but again, look at the Korean kids content. I mean, forget the K-pop and K-entertainment programming. Even in the, if you look at the content landscape in Korea, which is around children, they have done innovations which we can learn from. So I just want to wish you luck. It's an year where elections are happening. It's a year, again, while the elections are on, IPL is happening. And again, IPL, cricket is a religion in India. Kids need to do much more than watch cricket. You have a role to play, not just in building your businesses, but making sure there is alternative content that is powerful and instills values for a future child to be a young adult. Thank you. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the valedictory session couldn't have been better. Sir, I'll request you to wait. And I'll invite Mr. Siddharth, like founder and editor-in-chief, IWMBuzz Media Network, to kindly come up on stage and hand over the token of appreciation to the man himself, Dr. ANNURAG Batra, ladies and gentlemen.